He's been called the godfather of Trump mania, the always outspoken radio host and author Michael Savage, on this edition of Politicking. Welcome to Politicking. I'm Larry King. Michael Savage is an award-winning host of the nationally syndicated radio program, The Michael Savage Show, and he's a New York Times best-selling author. He was an early supporter of Donald Trump's candidacy and recently said that President Trump's most immediate threat is not Russia, China, or the controversy over whether his predecessor, Barack Obama, wiretapped phones in the Trump Tower. He says the greatest threat to Donald Trump is the so-called neocon wing of the Republican Party. His latest book, just out, is Trump's War, His Battle for America. And he joins me from San Francisco via Skype. You've been called the godfather of Trump mania. Are you a Trump maniac?
Well, first of all, those words were written by a very, very fine liberal reporter and published in the Salon magazine, which was a liberal publication. And the man is a very strong, real liberal, not a crazed progressive who beats people up with sticks. And he said that as a man who came from the working class background, he started listening to me years ago in New York on WABC. And he actually listened to the message of me appealing to the middle American, who was left behind. And he said it was my message that Donald Trump picked up from my radio show that launched him into the White House. And he called it Trumpomania.
All right, it's almost 100 days. What do you make so far?
Unfortunately, the obstructionists have blocked almost everything he has tried to do. Whether you agree with his policies or don't, and I'm sure you don't agree with many of them, he has been, unfortunately, not very successful in getting many of his ideas across. However, I have to remind people that from a conservative point of view, had Hillary won, I know you'd be happy today, it would be a different landscape right now. She was going to go after the First Amendment through the so-called fairness doctrine, which would have had me taken off the air, for example.
I agree with the fairness doctrine. I lived with it all those years. You have to be fair. What's wrong with that?
That's not the fairness doctrine.
It was the fairness. I lived with it every year on the radio, every year.
No. The fairness doctrine's different, Larry, today. They would say that for every comment, for example, that I make a conservative, there has to be a counterpoint for liberal conservative.
What's wrong with that?
Commentary. Well, do you have a conservative every time you make a statement, making a conservative statement?
I don't make statements. I interview honestly, and then when I interview liberals, I'm just the same as when I interview conservatives. Well,
let's go to MSNBC today. Rachel Maddow comes up with this fake story that Trump's not going to pay taxes. Then the thing is released. I mean, MSNBC has lost all its credibility.
No, did she say he's not going to pay taxes?
They made it sound like it was going to be a revelation that he beat everyone on taxes.
No, it was a two-page thing where you get 1%. It was a lot of hullabaloo over nothing. I agree
even
with
her
you.
sister network, CNBC, turned on them because it was such an embarrassment to NBC. He paid 25%. Comcast paid 24%. Obama paid 19%. And Bernie Sanders, the socialist, paid 13%.
What's your assessment of it? He's been trying to stop, but you agree that McConnell did the same thing to Obama. We stop him at every turn. We want him to fail. We'll not succeed at anything, right?
Well, Ryan said that I will not support him. Then McConnell is on record saying no tax deal this year, no wall, blah, blah, blah. So if you want to look at it from that point of view, his greatest enemies, by the way, in Trump's war, as said on the Drudge Report, Savage, Republican traitors blocking Trump. The Republicans are a bigger obstruction than the Democrats right now because they truly do not want change, Larry.
And why?
They don't want the change.
Why are they against him?
You know, Larry, when you've been making so much money and you're rewarding your donors so well for so long, you don't want to upset the apple cart. You don't want to rein in the federal government. You don't want to cut back on spending. They like 2 feet at the trough, the rhinos, so to speak. So they're a bigger problem because they pretend that they're on his side when they're really not on his side.
But they've got a health plan. Is he supporting? I'm not clear. Is he supporting Ryan's health plan or not?
No one knows. It's such a confused mess. I have a solution to the health care problem, which I talked about for 2 days.
I like single payer. You don't like single payer.
Here's my solution. You ready? Simple. See if it works for you. When I turned 18, I had to get car insurance. They wanted a very high rate because I was a teenager getting a license, and most teenagers get into more accidents than middle-aged men. So my insurance rate was going to be very high. I went to my father, who was paying a low rate, and I said, Dad, this doesn't make sense. Why are they charging me more? Why are they putting me into an assigned risk pool? He said, because statistics show teenage drivers get into more accidents. Right. I had to pay the higher tab till I showed that I wasn't going to get into accidents. What is wrong with the idea of putting high-risk individuals into high-risk insurance pools? Why should everyone pay the same amount? Let's say you're in a high-risk profession. You're a deep-sea underwater welder. You're at a high risk of getting injured. You should pay more than an old lady who goes to church 3 times a day and doesn't work in such a profession.
As my friend, the late Walter Ullin, used to say, money is not the only thing. Health is 3%.
Very fun.
Okay, you think this health plan is going to pass?
No, I think it's dead in the water.
Stay right there. More with Michael Savage right after this. What do you think of Steve Bannon?
Let me put it to you this way. I don't know Stephen. However, I have said on the radio, and I'll say it again on Larry King, that while Stephen's philosophy is similar to my own, it's very patriotic and nationalistic, which is what I've been preaching for 22 years, borders, language, culture. I think he misled the president in going too fast and too hard in the wrong direction. He should have focused on domestic policy first. I try to get that message to the president. Stop with the Brexit and stop with what's in the international sphere. Let's go out and take some of your billionaire friends and invest in rebuilding a steel plant in Western Pennsylvania and say America is back again and show that steel plant being rebuilt. Jobs in West Virginia, jobs in Pennsylvania. That's what I would have advised, but no one asked for my opinion.
But how do you undercut the prices of steel from other countries, which they pay less, so they charge you less, so why should the manufacturer pay more? And because we want you, America's patriotic, but the guy who owns the factory, the guy who orders the steel will pay the least.
Yes, that's a very good point. But if you add into that equation the out-of-work coal miner, the out-of-work steel worker, the out-of-work iron worker, and then see how much we are paying through taxes, through welfare, through rehabilitation, through job training if they're taking that, or drug treatment. Many of them become drug addicts or alcoholics. The steel isn't really cheaper. If you take in the cost of the social costs on top of the additional cost of U.S. steel, it'll come out less than it will buying it from South Korea. We've got to rebuild the infrastructure here, Larry. The Midwest is hollowed out. Look at our bridges, roads, and tunnels. A disaster.
Yeah, of course. But Obama tried that, and the Republicans rejected it every time. You got to admit that, Michael. Come on.
Well, there's a difference here, though. You're asking a very important question. Trump said he's going to do $1 trillion infrastructure plan. How does it differ than Obama's stimulus plan of $1 trillion, right? In my book, Trump's War, I have a whole chapter on privatization. I'll give you a quick example. In the East Coast, everyone's driven on a turnpike, right? Turnpike. Where does the word turnpike come from? Pike is the same thing as a gate that goes up and down. After the Revolutionary War in this country, all roads were built with private investment, Larry. They were toll roads. Toll roads. That's where it came from. The pike went up, turnpike. It went up and down. You paid your toll and you went on your merry way. So it would be a big difference if his billionaire supporters built some of these roads and highways at the lowest possible cost, because they're businessmen, as opposed to the highest possible cost, which is what we have now, with the infrastructure construction costs going to shady characters who are doing government bidding. So what I'm saying is, if we rebuild the infrastructure, Larry, with private investment in some of these things, a new bridge, a new tunnel, a new road, that's a way to solve the problem without increasing taxes.
And how do you put a limit on how much the guy makes from charging the toll on the private road? Supposing it's paid back in 2 years, does he stop charging?
I don't know. Never thought about it. We'll have to think about it.
Why should he make money after that?
Do they ever pay off? Have they ever paid off the George Washington Bridge, Larry?
All right. Are you concerned?
Have they paid off the Holland? Larry, have they paid off the Holland Tunnel yet?
Okay, we got a lot of things to get into. It's a hell of a book. You're always on target, Michael, whether people agree or not.
You listen. At least you listen.
You're
to
fair.
An
I always listen. Okay. What do you think? Defense Secretary James Mattis said, if you don't fund the State Department fully, and they're trying to cut it 30%, I think, then I need to buy more ammunition ultimately. Think he's right?
I don't know what the ammunition has to do with the State Department.
Well, because if you don't support diplomacy, you're going to have fighting.
I think that Mattis is a little too internationalist for my taste. I know I'm not supposed to criticize any of these generals, but I don't think he's 100% the right man for the right job. I don't agree with him. I think the State Department is wholly overfunded, largely over-bureaucratized, too many employees. It's a government unto itself, and I think it needs to be cut drastically. I think Mattis is wrong.
Are you concerned about the Russian story and Trump?
Everyone's a Russian spy. My father came from Russia. I guess I'm a Russian spy.
No, are you concerned that obviously there were celebrations all over Russia when he was elected?
I had a blintz the other day. I think maybe I was secretly spying on America for the Russians. Nonsense is a nonsense story.
How do you know?
Why did Russia suddenly, Larry, come on. Why did Russia suddenly become the bad boy and our enemy? For years, in the first years of the Obama administration, we were getting along with Russia.
Yeah, because
they were our best friend.
Putin did not like Hillary. She was hawkish, too hawkish for him. And he supported Trump. There were celebrations all over Russia.
I don't blame them. I really don't blame them for celebrating in Russia.
So why shouldn't we be concerned if Russia is kind of our enemy?
They're not our enemy. The last thing we want on earth is a new superpower as our enemy. Larry, Russia is our natural ally against ISIS, the worst scourge since Hitler. The only reason ISIS is on the run in the Middle East is because of the Russian Air Force. We were doing nothing. Obama was faking it. He did nothing against ISIS. Dragged his heels.
So there's nothing about Russia. What if you found out that Russia got involved in our election? Don't tell me as an American you would not be pissed.
I don't know that they did.
No, but if they did.
This we know. We know this. We know that Russia apparently hacked the DNC information.
What do you think of that?
But they did.
Just that enough. That in and of itself, what do you think of that?
What did they find out by hacking
Wait a minute,
the
hold
DNC?
it. What do you think of them hacking it?
They found out that they were smearing Bernie Sanders and using his Jewish heritage against him.
But what do you think of them hacking it?
So they did us all a favor. They uncovered the lies of the Democrat Party.
So it's okay if I hack your phone and find out something so I can reveal it about you?
My television watches me every night. I sit in my underwear watching TV, and I find out my Samsung TV is watching. I have to buy a silk robe now to watch TV with my dog.
If Russia hacked the DNC, it's okay, right?
I don't know whether it's a done fact. I don't know whether it's okay. And by the way, every country hacks everyone else. You think that we're not hacking other countries?
Okay, so if you catch someone speeding and he says everyone else is speeding, that's all right, right?
No, it's not all right. But the British spy on us. And your friend Obama, by the way, went to the British intelligence services. It came out the other day. I don't think you saw the story. And he had them try to hack Trump Tower. There are 3 sources reporting that. He went to the British intelligence service and had them hack the Trump Tower. And what did they actually find?
They deny it.
Okay, fine. No, our spy agency is going to admit it.
Stay right there. We'll be right back with more of Michael Savage. Here's the book, Trump's War, His Battle for America. Don't go away.
Amen.
Welcome back to Politicking. My guest, one of my favorite people, Michael Savage. The book, Trump's War, His Battle for America. Okay, what do you think about the new travel ban?
I think it's wonderful. Why? Do you have to be a genius to understand that almost every terrorist event on the planet is being conducted by Muslims? Are we not allowed to say that anywhere on the earth? Everybody knows that. Here's something that a Muslim scholar wrote. It's true that not all Muslims are terrorists. We know that. Most of them are law-abiding citizens who want to raise a family, be left alone. But he wrote that it's also true that almost all the terrorist events are conducted by Muslims. Do we have to have a collective insomnia? Collective, what do you call it? When you can't remember anything? I can't remember what I'm trying to remember. When you forget. Collective amnesia. We forgot already what happened in San Bernardino. Then 2 Muslims went on a rampage and shot their coworkers. We forgot the Orlando shooting of the gay nightclub. Go all the way back. It's Muslims attacking us because our way of life, especially the wild way of life, somehow doesn't conform to their 9th century view of the world. We can't just close our eyes to the realities of this.
The wall is not barring Muslims. It's barring Mexicans. And
that's another story. Well, here's my position on that.
How many illegal immigrants rape and commit crimes every day in America. Come on, Michael.
You're in the wrong. You're putting me in the wrong category on Mexicans. I happen to get along great with Mexicans, and I have a different view on Mexico.
So what's the wall for?
Well, let me finish. In Trump's war, I talk about the wall. Now, first of all, I have a different opinion as expressed in this book than you might expect. I didn't say throw them all out. That's absurd. I work with Mexicans, El Salvadorans, Guatemalans, the beautiful, beautiful people.
Beautiful.
Hardworking. When I see bricks being laid on a street and I look there and I hear them talking Spanish, I remember being in New York when I saw Sicilians doing the same thing, talking Sicilian. Right. So it's no different to me. Right, same family values, identical. I don't see any difference. So I say, let's split the difference here. Let us understand that the people who are here working at hard jobs, and they work like no one I've ever seen in my life, you let them stay here. We are talking about deporting the criminals. Larry, I don't know if you know the fact, 1/3 of all prisoners in America are illegal aliens. They don't belong here to begin with. So start by deporting the prison population that are not citizens. Trump's trying to get rid of the bad guys. He's not deporting the average cook or busboy or gardener.
What, by the way, is anything Trump proposed that you don't like?
Yes. A few things. I think his health care plan is Obama's plan. Not much different. I mean, it's kind of the same thing rewarmed. I don't see any much of a change there.
All right. Don't tell me you're in favor of buying guns for mental patients.
Of course not. Who would be in favor of that?
Trump just signed it.
I'm sorry. I don't want mental patients to have guns. I've been on record on that. That's crazy. But wait, let's include people on psychotropic drugs like Prozac. Do you know how many of these mass shootings, Larry, you want to go into it? It's one of my specialties, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to go into how. One of the specialties of areas that I've studied in my PhD work was this area of psychotropic drugs. And the fact of the matter is, most of the mass shootings in schools are conducted by people who are on, serotonin uptake reinhibitors, meaning, that kind of Prozac-like drug.
We'll continue the conversation with Michael Savage after the break. You hail the patriots who elected Trump. Does
yes,
that mean if you didn't vote for Trump, you're not a patriot?
That's right, and I want you deported, Larry. I want you to go open a bagel shop in Romania.
Michael.
No, of course not.
That was anti-Semitic, Michael. That was anti-Semitic.
What, Romania?
No, the way you framed it.
Oh, you really are paranoid, Larry. Come on. You're from Brooklyn. I'm from the Bronx. You have a sense of humor. I think you didn't lose it all these years in L.A., did you?
So do you feel the people who oppose Trump are anti-American?
No, most of them are, yes.
Really? So you're a nationalist?
Yes, I'm a proud nationalist. When my grandfather came in from Russia, he kissed the ground. I'm sure your grandfather did, too.
My father did.
When did it become rubish to love America? Why is it a crime?
Nothing wrong with loving it, but the statement that my country, right or wrong, is still my country. No, if my country is wrong, I'm going to oppose it. I oppose the Iraq War. I oppose the Iraq War. My country fought it.
But what if your country is right? Why can't you support it?
Then I support it then, too, of course. Its own. But right or wrong is an opinion.
Larry, you are actually politically a true liberal in the sense of the JFK liberal era. That's what you are. You're a true liberal. I have a friend in San Francisco, one of the top antitrust attorneys in the world. I could mention his name, but I won't. You'll know the name immediately. A liberal. His whole family. His father was the mayor of San Francisco. You'll know who I'm talking about.
All right.
You probably know him.
I know. I knew the mayor.
A true liberal. He hates progressives. He said they're the violent fascists of our time. He loves my show. He said all the liberals in this city who are real liberals love your show because you use logic to present your ideas. We may not agree with you at the end, but at least we learn because you're presenting your ideas with facts to back them up. Now, that's true liberalism. Very few of you are left, Larry.
How about very few moderate Republicans, too, right?
I'm not a moderate Republican.
I know there are no moderate Republicans.
I'm not a Republican, Larry. Please don't insult me.
What are you?
Groucho Marx said, I would never join a club that would have me as a member. That's number one. I don't like Republicans. I don't like their check pants. I don't like their golf club mentality, the country club mentality. That's not me. I'm an independent is what I am. And my position is I'm a great animal rights supporter. What does that make me? Save the whales. I had a whole show on stopping the killing of whales.
What do you?
I'm a strong conservationist going back 40 years. What does that make me?
So then,
you can't define it.
Do you at least agree with 97% of the scientists that we have climate change caused by carbon dioxide?
No, totally wrong. They have it upside down. Carbon dioxide is a product of climate change. I've studied the data. I have a PhD in hard sciences. No, they're wrong.
97% of scientists are all lying.
I'll tell you what. I'll close the show by telling you what I told Donald Trump as I left the dessert with him in Mar-a-Lago. I said, here's the sum total of the argument on global warming. Mr. President, we had 5 ice ages that came and went. What made the ice melt? This was before industrialization. His face lit up. He said, thank you. I got it. Larry, it's simple. It's 5th grade logic, but it's irrefutable. So 5 ice ages, the Earth is covered with ice, then it disappears. Why? It wasn't the Model T Ford that did it.
97% of scientists are wrong.
Yes, they're government scientists.
Michael Savage is right.
Larry,
and scientists
come on. They
are
receive
wrong.
Government funding. They're funded through the NIH. They're funded through all of this NSF. If they don't conform to the government line, they don't get funding, Larry. I know it very well as a former scientist. I know how this works. You're going to see changes soon when the other side is allowed to present its evidence.
Why? The other side presents its evidence. They present their evidence.
No,
but there's no
they are not funded at all. They're not allowed to be funded.
Scientists.
They will not. Larry, I know the scientists. If you look into it, they do not fund any research that supports any position other than the one they want the results of.
So you're saying that you are pro-carbon dioxide?
You keep bringing it up. Larry, when you grew up, you want to talk about carbon dioxide? Without carbon dioxide, we'd have no plant life.
Well, we learn a lot.
Larry, carbon dioxide is actually good. It gave us the Carboniferous period in geological history, which allowed the Earth to have plants bloom and food to grow. Without carbon dioxide, we'd all starve to death. So, I mean, let's be realistic. Carbon dioxide is like saying Russians are bad. Carbon dioxide's bad. Larry, we got to put these things in context. It's not the carbon dioxide that is causing the slight warming. It is the fact that there's a slight warming that is producing the extra carbon dioxide. Look into that side of it. It's an alternate view of things. You got to look at that and see if it's wrong.
So I'm glad that Michael Savage today, here on Larry King Now, proves that 97% of scientists are wrong, and he is right.
That's right. And if Donald Trump hires me, I'll straighten out the science in this country and make it real science again. Not the political science that we have today, where these scientists do what the government wants them to say. By the way, I'll go wherever the evidence leads. That's science. When you hear a statement like this, Larry, you know it's not scientific. The evidence is in. The evidence is in. Everyone agrees that global warming is caused by man's horrible behavior. The first rule of science is that, no, all the evidence is not in. The minute you say it is in, it's no longer a scientific statement. Science is based upon evidence that keeps emerging, and evidence keeps emerging.
Michael, I'll make you a scientific statement that is a fact.
Go ahead.
The world is round.
Okay.
For hundreds of years and hundreds of years, the world was flat. If Michael Savage was on the air
maybe
in
to your ancestors,
BC, it's flat.
Not to my ancestors. We always knew it was round. Maybe in your part of the world you thought it was square. None of us did.
Michael, certain scientific fact. You accept Darwin?
Of course, I'm a great student of Darwin.
A lot of people don't agree with it.
But I don't agree with them.
Okay. Trump doesn't agree with Darwin.
But Larry, Darwin's results were based upon the evidence that he found as an independent scientist poking around in the Galapagos and elsewhere.
Right.
Today's science is not run like that, Larry. It's run off government grants. And unless you write a proposal of what your grant is going to, what your study is going to look like, they want the results in advance of your proposal. And unless they see the results written into the proposal between the lines, you're not getting the money, Larry. Big science is corrupt today, Larry.
So all the countries that signed that treaty about global warming, they're all wrong.
Larry, let's put this in context. We all want a cleaner Earth. And nobody has worked longer and harder than I have to save the Earth. Going back to 1975 when I published my first book on this subject called Plant a Tree. Larry, I have a long record of keeping the Earth as pristine as we can and protecting animals. But I don't want to go along with the program just because that's what the government wants.
Michael, I love you. I love having you on. The book is Trump's War, His Battle for America. Michael Savage, great having you with us.
Thanks, Larry. Always a pleasure. I want to see you in Beverly Hills.
Thank you for joining me on this edition of Politicking. Remember, you can join the conversation on my Facebook page, check out the Politicking blog on our homepage, or tweet me at King's Things. And don't forget, use the Politicking hashtag. And that's all for this edition of Politicking.